The 14th of September, 1875, Natchez, Mississippi. The air smells of cinnamon pies and roasted corn. Laughter spilling from the harvest fair while enslaved hands long freed still bear the scars of the past. But in the kitchen, one woman is shaping more than pastry, she is shaping justice. What could drive Rebecca Lowry to turn the tables on the very people who once ruled her life? The 14th of September, 1875. And the sun spills over Natchez like molten gold, brushing the tall cornfields and ornate porches with a fleeting warmth. The harvest fair hums with music, laughter, and the clink of fine china, a display of wealth polished with pride. Children race between booths, their shoes dusty and eyes wide with delight, oblivious to the labor that carved the bounty before them. The air carries the scent of roasted corn, sweet cider, and the deep richness of pies cooling on polished wooden tables, their crusts flaky and golden, their fillings glossy with sugared fruit. Behind the laughter and chatter, however, the kitchens carry a different rhythm, one of heat, of sweat, and of hands blistered from generations of toil. This is the world Rebecca Lowry knows, its sweetness laced with sorrow, its colors masked with shadows. Rebecca stands by the long-worn counter, her hands moving with skill learned over decades, fingers dancing over rolling pins and pastry dough. She tastes nothing herself. Every morsel, every pie, every tender crust is meant for others. She is remembered in whispers as the best baker in the county. Her skill, both her gift and her cage. Born to parents who were enslaved, Rebecca inherited their resilience, their sharp eyes, and the quiet strength that makes survival possible in a world that strips you bare. Her arms are strong from years of stirring kettles and kneading dough. Her skin carries the faint burn of the hearth. Her eyes are alert to every movement around her. Outside, the wealthy sip wine and comment on the fair's grandeur, unaware of the history in her calloused hands, the lineage of pain folded into the pastries they consume with delight. The plantation's master, Colonel Whitford, strides past, his boots echoing on the polished floor, a silken coat draped over broad shoulders, a grin fixed in entitlement. Mrs. Whitford follows, cold-eyed, her lace gloves clean, her disdain invisible yet palpable. The overseer, Harlan, shadows the kitchen, his whip tucked into the folds of his belt, his presence a constant reminder of the power imbalance that structures every moment of her life. The contrast is brutal riches, ease and laughter on one side, sweat, toil, and silent endurance on the other. The kitchen smells of sugar, spice, and fire, but to Rebecca, it is also the scent of chains. She slices apples for pies, rolls dough and stirs fillings, each movement precise, controlled, almost ritualistic. She knows her place, the lines drawn in invisible ink by centuries of oppression, yet beneath that obedience simmers a fire no one notices, no one expects. A simmering storm waits behind her calm gaze, a quiet reckoning that the world does not yet see. The betrayal comes not as a shout but as a whispered insult, a careless act that cuts deeper than any whip. The colonel, drunk on pride and power, ridicules her work before the gathering, mocking her hands, her face, her very existence. The words sting, and for a moment, Rebecca feels the old ache of injustice, the memory of generations shackled and silenced. She tastes the bitterness of humiliation alongside the sweet sugar on her tongue. In the flickering light of the kitchen, she imagines a world turned upside down, a place where her skill is not a tool for subjugation, but a weapon of reclamation. Harlan's shadow lingers, eyes sharp, ready to enforce cruelty, while Mrs. Whitford's gaze freezes her in place, assessing, calculating, indifferent to suffering. Each antagonist is rendered in sharp relief, their faults and vices etched into the air. The colonel's arrogance, Mrs. Whitford's calculated coldness, Harlan's brutality, and the local officials who shield them all with law and tradition. Rebecca begins to plan, not with frenzy but with quiet precision. She moves through the kitchen with the awareness of every corner, every knife, every crack in the wooden floorboards. Rolling pins become instruments of patience. Pies are crafted not for taste, but for justice. each layer of crust folded with intention, each filling seasoned with reckoning. She recalls the stories passed down, the whispered legends of resistance, of small rebellions that leave no trace but echo through the generations. The scents of the kitchen: cinnamon, nutmeg, sugar, and heated apples become markers in her memory, cues for the methodical work ahead. Every chop of fruit, every swirl of batter, every careful crimp of crust is measured, deliberate, and imbued with resolve. Her mind sharpens. Her fear is tempered by the clarity of purpose. She remembers her parents' eyes, the years of watching the powerful feast while the powerless starved, the hushed prayers in the night. Her body moves on instinct, trained by years of labor, her thoughts turning over every step, every contingency. Outside, the fair continues, oblivious, a chorus of gaiety masking the tension that coils in Rebecca's chest. The oven glows like a promise, a hearth where justice can be shaped. Foreshadowing weaves through the warmth of the kitchen. The clatter of utensils becomes a drumbeat of determination. The rising steam, a veil for what is to come. She tastes nothing, consumes nothing, yet the flavors of her past and present converge, forging a resolve that can no longer be ignored. The storm has begun, quiet but unstoppable, building behind her calm eyes, waiting for the moment it can be unleashed. The night of the harvest fair arrives with lanterns swaying in the warm Mississippi breeze, their glow painting the square in gold and shadow. Laughter rings louder, fiddles scrape into high reels, and glasses of cider slosh in careless hands. The colonel sits at the head of a grand table beneath a striped canopy, his coat heavy with metals that gleam in the firelight. Around him gather his allies, the overseer, the judge, his wife, and a crowd of eager mouths waiting for the feast. They speak of cotton yields, of profits, of the power of tradition, blind to the truth simmering only steps away. In the kitchen, Rebecca works in silence. The dough stretches beneath her rolling pin, pliant and obedient, while inside her chest, her heartbeat drums steady and strong. Each pie is placed with care into the glowing oven, fire licking the edges, the sweet scent rising into the night like incense. Her internal voice is calm, deliberate, unshaken. This is not vengeance. This is balance. This is the taste of justice. She wipes her brow, the sweat stinging her eyes, and continues. To the outside eye, she is only a cook, dutiful, invisible. To herself, she has become an architect of reckoning. The first pie is carried out, its crust golden, its filling thick and dark. The colonel carves into it with pride, raising a forkful high, as though the harvest itself were his own creation. The crowd roars approval. He chews slowly, then freezes, his grin faltering, a flicker of unease spreading across his flushed face. Rebecca watches from the shadows, her expression unreadable, her breath steady. He clutches his chest, collapses into the laughter that turns to screams. His fall is sudden, shocking, his authority broken not by blade or whip but by the meal he demanded. Another pie follows, offered to Mrs. Whitford. She tastes it with practiced grace, lifting her chin in disdain even as her throat closes, her eyes widening in terror. The overseer reaches for her, but his own serving betrays him too, and he staggers, gasping, the whip at his side falling useless to the ground. One by one, those who had thrived on others' suffering fall silent at the very table they presided over, their downfall as methodical as the hands that prepared it. The fair dissolves into chaos. Lanterns crash, benches topple. The crowd shrieks in disbelief. Rebecca does not flinch. She walks slowly back toward the kitchen, her steps measured, her resolve unbroken. The world has shifted in the span of a single meal. In the smoke rising from the oven, she sees not just the fire of destruction, but the first breath of freedom. The pies are finished, the reckoning complete, the oppressors silenced by their own hunger. And Rebecca, calm and unwavering, stands as the quiet force who turned the instruments of her bondage into the weapons of her liberation. The fairground echoes with confusion long after the screams fade, a chaos of overturned tables and abandoned food, the sweetness of cinnamon now cloying, sickly, unbearable. Soldiers and officials seize Rebecca quickly, her wrists bound in rough iron cuffs, but she walks with dignity, her chin lifted, her gaze steady. Crowds whisper, some in horror, some in awe, her name already taking root in their memories. At her trial, the judge, one of the very men who dined at the colonel's table, condemns her without hesitation. Words like murder and treason are spoken with venom, yet none can erase the image of what she accomplished. She listens without trembling. She knows the outcome was sealed the moment she placed those pies upon the table. The punishment is swift, a display meant to terrify, to remind others of the power structure still intact. Yet as the verdict echoes, Rebecca's face remains calm, her silence more powerful than any plea. For in that silence rests the truth. She has already shifted the balance. She has reminded the oppressed that even the strongest masters are mortal, that the tools of subjugation can be reshaped into weapons of defiance. The officials do not realize it, but the legend has already left the courtroom, carried in whispers beyond their reach. In the cabins of the poor, by the flicker of firelight, her name is spoken in hushed voices. Children hear the story of the woman who baked justice into pies, of the cook who turned her skill into a weapon. Mothers tell their daughters that Rebecca Lowry refused to bow, that she carved her place in history with flour and fire. The story spreads along rivers and roads, stitched into songs, woven into prayers. It grows not as a tale of cruelty, but as a spark of resistance, a reminder that even in the darkest oppression, the human spirit can carve its own path. For the wealthy and powerful, the harvest fair is remembered as a night of shame, a reminder of the fragility of their dominion. They attempt to erase Rebecca's name, to silence the memory, but it lingers, alive in the people they sought to control. Her pies become symbols, her kitchen a battlefield, her quiet gaze a legacy. What began as a single act of defiance becomes a legend that transcends death. And so Rebecca Lowry remains, not as a footnote in the ledgers of the South, but as a story that endures in the marrow of those who hear it. Her life becomes myth, her act a parable of courage and justice. Cinnamon, sugar, and fire, all once symbols of servitude, are recast as emblems of liberation. Her tale asks us to remember, what tools lie in our own hands, waiting to be reshaped? What stories will we leave behind? And how will we, like Rebecca, turn the ordinary into the extraordinary act of resistance that endures beyond our time?